From tabling an offer built around the trio of Tim Hardaway Jr., JaVale McGee, and Richaun Holmes, to the Mavs potentially returning with an improved offer, here's how the Phoenix Suns almost sent Deandre Ayton to Dallas. The Mavericks offered a number of players to get their hands on the former #1 pick, and it looked like the deal will go through. Around the same time when Phoenix completed the deal for Bradley Beal, the Suns were open to letting Ayton leave, as they realized that he wasn't what they needed to challenge for the championship. Dallas, on the other hand, had a rough season in 2022-23, and they were ready to put 3 players on the bus to Phoenix to address their biggest weakness. Ayton to Mavs was seen as a matter of when, not if, and most insiders believed the deal would go through simply because the Suns weren't too keen on keeping the star around. Say what you want about Ayton, he's still immensely talented and should shine under a decent coach. That's part of the reason why Dallas offered Tim Hardaway Jr. and Richaun Holmes, 2 players that the Suns were very much interested in. Because you can build a super team all you want, you ain't winning anything without significant depth. In addition to Hardaway and Holmes, the Mavericks added JaVale McGee as a sweetener, cause he became something of a mini cult hero in Phoenix during his first stint, and the thinking was that the package would be enough to convince the Suns. To everyone's surprise, that's where the whole deal collapsed, cause the Suns wanted nothing to do with McGee. According to NBA insiders on 23 draft night, the Suns didn't want to bring McGee back to the Valley of the Sun, believing that the cap space used on JaVale could be used better elsewhere. I mean, I can't blame them even though his last decent season was in Phoenix, but that was partly due to Chris Paul's exceptional skill to make any center great at pick and roll. As soon as he joined the Mavericks, he started showing his age and struggled to get on the floor for a side that didn't have any kind of depth anyway, particularly in the big men department. The Suns had learned their lesson the hard way. They clearly weren't interested in taking McGee back. Not to mention the deal meant Phoenix were getting nothing in terms of draft capital from the trade, and that's crucial because every single penny is important to them if they want to add some sort of depth before the 2023-24 season begins. That being said, I wouldn't advise giving up on this one because talks are expected to resume sometime over the summer according to a number of reliable insiders, because this is a trade that benefits all parties involved. The Mavericks have been crying out for a pick-and-roll partner for Luka Doncic, and Ayton could be exactly the kind of big they need to play the way they want.
I think he's controlling everything on the court, so he's their leader. And he's a hell of a player, and we really gotta make a great effort to stop him.
As lethal as the Slovenian has been throughout his career, he's never played with a lob threat as a roller, and that should scare every other team in the NBA. From the Suns' perspective as well, this is a trade they'd be interested in making, especially if they can get more than what the Mavericks were offering and still save some kind of cap space in return. The Suns are the only team in the NBA that wouldn't ask Dallas for Josh Green as part of any deal. At least I hope they wouldn't, because they've got enough depth in the guards department.
You can say the playoffs too, but even the first game of the season, we went to Phoenix and I think I played maybe 12 minutes. I was sprinting around the court and playing defense, and I think it's cool to be able to see growth from that game.
If they do, it'll be the kind of greed they talk about in the Bible. Anyway, this is a win-win for Ayton too. He's not going to advance his career playing in Phoenix. He knows that, and just about everyone knows it too. A change in scenery could do wonders for him, especially in Dallas where he fits their system like a freaking glove. I do think there are better bigs out there, but in Ayton, you've got someone getting you a double-double every night for fun, and he's super athletic, so he adds quite a bit to the Mavericks. But there's another twist to factor in. The Suns have fired Monty Williams. Now, you may ask, what does that have to do with Ayton's future? And the answer is everything. If you didn't know already, allow me to explain. Monty absolutely hated Ayton, and don't let anyone tell you differently. He wouldn't have been offered a max contract last summer if the franchise hadn't stepped in to complete the deal. And if Williams had his way, Ayton wouldn't be a Sun at this point. Like it always happens though, the players tend to come out on top of any coach-player disagreements. And that's why Williams was eventually let go while Ayton remained with the organization. If Williams was still running things, I'd be pretty confident in Dallas getting their hands on the former #1 pick.
And it's not something I worry about, but it is a part of the economy. When you look at really good coaches who've lost their jobs shortly after winning a championship.
Things changed dramatically when the franchise announced that Monty was let go, because that opened up the possibility of Ayton staying with the franchise. In fact, the Suns under the Monty coaching setup needed a more physical center who dominated the paint while leaving everything else for their super team to handle. It wasn't a bad plan, but Ayton wasn't physical enough to play that one-dimensional role, and his true potential wasn't getting fulfilled due to this very reason. Monty and Ayton also had a falling out at the end of the 2022 playoffs, with the coach forcing the Bahamian to sit on the bench for crucial games. He's got a lifeline in the Valley of the Sun though, because Monty failed to take the Suns to the promised land and he's been replaced by Frank Vogel. Anyone who followed the Lakers under Vogel knows what kind of a coach he is. The NBA champ got treated very unfairly because of the poor decision-making of the front office.
And when we get out there and play, we're going to be scrappy as hell. Like, we're going to have talent out there, but we're going to be a scrappy team that plays harder than our opponent every night. And we're going to be a team that makes this community very proud.
Otherwise, there's no way in hell that Darvin Ham's a better coach than Vogel. The Lakers' loss is the Suns' gain, and they'll be more than happy to provide Vogel with all the tools needed to challenge them. One of those tools is already in Phoenix, and that's Deandre Ayton. He's tailor-made for what Vogel needs, and if Ayton's got any sense, he'll know that Vogel can turn him into a true monster. His defensive limitations, his ability to rebound to a more effective degree, and even his scoring in the paint, Vogel can truly fix him, which is why the Suns will be considering keeping him with the rest of the core. I don't mind that actually. From a Suns perspective, it makes a lot of sense to find an in-house solution to their issues, but at the same time, they've got to address their depth. If Ayton remains on a max contract with Phoenix and with the rest of their super team, it's going to be very hard to pay role players. Without depth, they can kiss their chances of winning a championship goodbye, even with all the all-stars they've got in their ranks. Frank Vogel can get the best out of him. I don't think anyone doubts that, but the problem is, will the Suns say no to an improved offer from the Mavericks? As per most insiders, the Mavericks will 100% return for Ayton. Like I said earlier, he's their #1 target. They want to put him next to Luka and Kyrie, and it's a very attractive proposition. I don't think Ayton would mind playing next to a future Hall of Famer, with a change of scenery potentially being the push he needs to get going in his own career. At the same time though, the Suns know that this is a gamble in the making. If they let Ayton leave and he ends up becoming good for the Mavs, they'll be crucified for passing up one of the most talented bigs in the league. More importantly, who do they bring in to replace Ayton, because the market for big men is pretty average? There's also the issue of depth, and the Suns know they're not winning anything without a deep roster, which is why they need to at least consider such deals carefully. What happens if the Mavericks return with a more attractive offer? In fact, there have been rumors of the Suns considering a move for Kyrie Irving as well, and that'll be an interesting move because the Suns do have something that Dallas needs. They could also save a lot of cap space with Kyrie going the other way, and that would allow them to dip in the market to find a new backcourt partner for Doncic. Luckily for the Mavericks, there are plenty of guards available. All I know is this trade has the potential to get very interesting in the 2023 offseason. So, from the Mavs potentially returning with an improved offer, to tabling an offer built around the trio of Tim Hardaway Jr., JaVale McGee, and Richaun Holmes. This was how the Suns almost sent Deandre Ayton to Dallas.